Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. President Trump says he's spoken to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The latest as tensions between the two countries continue to rise.
U.S. and Ukrainian officials meet to discuss a peace proposal. What President Trump is saying about a deal to end the war.
President Trump will welcome the families of the Guard members shot in D.C. to come to the White House when they're ready, and signals a long pause in asylum decisions nationwide.
Lawmakers are working to prevent young students from being influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. A vote this week aims to withhold funding from schools that accept financial support from the regime.
The Northeast and Midwest brace for another winter storm. This one coming on the heels of a post-Thanksgiving blast of snow.
Are you looking to promote your business, your community projects, or the causes that are important to you? Well, we're going to have a social media expert in studio to teach us tips and tricks on how to find your authentic voice and cut through the noise on social media.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephania Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Today is Monday, December 1st. You're watching NTD Good Morning. In today's top news, tensions between the United States and Venezuela are escalating.
Yeah, President Trump says he spoke with Nicolas Maduro while U.S. lawmakers demand answers on alleged follow-up strikes in the Caribbean.
President Trump confirmed yesterday he had a phone call with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as Washington intensifies military and diplomatic pressure on Caracas.
The New York Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit
No,
about
I can't do that.
Mr. President, would you say it went well?
I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
The news comes as the Trump administration closes Venezuelan airspace, warning airlines and pilots and drug dealers and human traffickers to avoid the region.
Mr. President, on Venezuela, can you tell us more about why the airspace above Venezuela should be considered closed?
Because we consider Venezuela to be not a very friendly country. They sent millions of people, really, and probably a number in excess of that. And a lot of those people shouldn't be in our country, from jails, from gangs, from drug dealers.
The Federal Aviation Administration earlier this month warned airlines of heightened military activity in the region, sparking several canceled flights to Venezuela.
Does your warning mean that an airstrike is imminent, or should we not read it that way?
Don't read anything into it.
Tensions have surged following more than 20 U.S. strikes on alleged drug-smuggling boats since September. The administration says these operations have killed more than 80 people designated as narco-terrorists. But lawmakers from both parties are now demanding answers after reports that U.S. forces carried out a follow-up strike on survivors of an attack in September. War Secretary Pete Hegseth has denied ordering any follow-up strikes, calling reports fabricated and inflammatory.
I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe him 100%.
You don't know if there was
You're talking about the two men?
The second strike to kill the two men.
No, he said he didn't do it. He said he never said it.
Venezuela is now accusing the U.S. of murder, acknowledging for the first time that some of the dead were Venezuelan nationals. In Caracas yesterday, Maduro re-emerged in public for the first time in days. He appeared at an annual specialty coffee awards event and avoided any direct mention of the crisis. The unusually highly public president has not been seen for days, leading to speculation about his whereabouts.
And a critical round of diplomacy over the weekend with U.S. and Ukrainian officials pushing for a framework to end the war.
President Trump says progress is being made.
They're going along, and they're going along well. We want to stop people from being killed. Doesn't have much to do with us, but I'd like to see if we can save a lot of souls.
Do you want, to tell Putin, here is my deadline for you to...
No, I don't have a deadline. I have a deadline when the war is over. And hopefully the war is going to be over. 27,000 people killed last week. 27,000 over the last 3 or 4 weeks. 27,000 people killed. That war should end.
The U.S.-Ukraine talks unfolded yesterday at a private club near Miami. Ukraine entered the meeting facing intensifying pressure at home, including a major corruption probe and widespread power outages from Russian strikes.
The talks also came as Russian forces continue to push along the front lines. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters yesterday the session with the Ukrainian team was productive, but work remains in the search for a peace deal. Rubio says the U.S. now has to bring Russia on board and find a middle ground between Moscow's and Kiev's goals. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar brings us more.
We want the Ukrainian people to emerge from this war, not just to rebuild their country, but to build it back in a way that will be stronger and more prosperous than it's ever been.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio giving a press conference on Sunday afternoon after meeting with Ukrainian representatives in Florida. Also at the meeting were Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. Sunday's meeting sets the stage for talks with Russia. President Vladimir Putin says Moscow is ready for serious discussions and that the outlines reached by the US and Ukraine could serve as a basis for agreements to end the fighting. According to Rubio, the US and Ukraine made good progress during Sunday's meeting and during an initial summit in Geneva last weekend. But he acknowledges that Moscow still has to agree to the plans made between Washington and Kiev.
And that'll continue later this week when Mr. Witkoff travels to Moscow, although we've also been in touch in varying degrees with the Russian side, but we have a pretty good understanding of their views as well. So much work remains.
He highlighted that the goal is not just to end the fighting, but to make sure that peace remains and that Ukraine can be prosperous in the future. A big part of that is to make sure Ukraine has security guarantees from the West. Ukraine's former lead negotiator, Andrew Yermak, resigned this week amid a corruption scandal. The Ukrainian side sent its former defense minister, Rustem Umerov, to lead Sunday's negotiations. Umerov expressed his gratitude towards Washington for supporting Kiev's goals.
We were discussing about the future of Ukraine. We discussed all the important matters that are important for Ukraine, for Ukrainian people, and U.S. was super supportive.
The next step of the peace process is for Witkoff to travel to Russia. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Earlier this morning, the Kremlin said an American delegation led by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff would be in Moscow tomorrow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The two are expected to talk about changes that Ukraine and its allies have made to the U.S. proposed peace plan to end the Russia-Ukraine war. And fallout over the tragic shooting of two National Guard members continues to unfold. President Trump says the U.S. will continue to tighten immigration laws, and there could be no asylum for some nations for a long time.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus reactions from Attorney General Pam Bondi and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
President Trump told reporters yesterday that his administration could pause asylum admissions for an extended period.
No time limit, but it could be a long time.
Trump was referring to the 19 nations his administration designates as countries of identified concern when asked which nationals might face asylum restrictions.
Let me just tell you something. We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many have been no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
What do you mean by those people? Can you
The
clarify?
people from different countries that are not friendly to us and countries that are out of control themselves.
The president also addressed his earlier comments about possibly revoking citizenship from individuals who already obtained it.
We have criminals that came into our country and they were naturalized maybe through a Biden or somebody that didn't know what they were doing. If I have the power to do it, I'm not sure that I do, but if I do, I would denaturalize absolutely.
His remarks come after Citizenship and Immigration Services halted all asylum decisions until it says it can ensure that every immigrant is vetted to the maximum degree possible. Attorney General Pam Bondi criticized the vetting of arrivals under the Operation Allies Welcome program, the pathway used by the Afghan suspect in the D.C. shooting, speaking on Fox News.
They did not do biometrics. They did not do social media. They did very little, if minimal, vetting on all of these people. And now to take a step back, we have a 1.5 million backlog of people that have come into our country.
Bondi says radicalization is happening inside the U.S. as well.
We know that this shooter who shot our National Guardsman in D.C. the day before Thanksgiving, he was radicalized. You're going to hear a lot more about that. And these people should not have been in our country.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was asked why the suspect, who previously served in a CIA-trained strike force, was not fully vetted. Although he entered the U.S. in 2021, he wasn't granted asylum until April of this year, speaking on NBC News.
The vetting process, Kristen, happens when the person comes into the country, and Joe Biden completely did not vet any of these individuals, did not vet this individual, waited until he got into the United States, and then that application for asylum was opened under the Joe Biden administration when he was the president in the White House and allowed that to go forward with the information that they provided. That's the Biden administration's responsibility.
President Trump says he plans to honor the 2 National Guard members shot in Washington and that he has invited their parents to the White House.
I've already suggested it. I said, when you're ready, because that's a tough thing, come to the White House, we're going to honor Sarah. And likewise with Andrew, recover or not, we're going to honor her.
West Virginia National Guard members Sarah Beckstrom and Andrew Wolf were shot in an alleged ambush the day before Thanksgiving. Beckstrom died the next day from her injuries. Wolf remains in critical condition. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thanks to Daniel for that report. And joining us to discuss the fallout from the D.C. shootings is Mike Leon. He's an NTD News contributor and the host of the Can We Please Talk podcast. And Simon Hankinson, Senior Research Fellow on Border and Security and Immigration Center with the Heritage Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us this morning. We're going to explore both aspects of the fallout, both immigration as well as the National Guard deployments. Let's start with immigration. Mike, over to you, your thoughts on that and some of the fallout that we were just seeing in that last package.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. Obviously my thoughts and prayers are with Sarah's family and pulling for Andrew, obviously, to get through all of this. Look, this is one of those times, Kerry, where I think buzzwords, phrases, pointing the blame. I mean, both administrations can take some of this blame here, obviously, in terms of the refugee program that welcomed in this guy into here, and then obviously the asylum case and the immigration judge that allowed this person to stay earlier this year. So there's a lot of finger pointing to blame, and that normally happens when these type of things happen. And the tragedy is lost in all of this and how we actually make sure that not only our troops are safe, police officers are safe, everybody gets the proper resources and vetting. So there's a lot to digest with all of this. In terms of the immigration aspect of it, the one thing I would say, Kerry, that is kind of counter to what Kristi Noem just said there in the package, and I was speaking with an immigration attorney, a high-profile one yesterday in New Jersey that has handled some of these cases before. The vetting process is very thorough because granting asylum is very, very low. In August of 25, according to track reports, only about 19% of asylum cases were even approved, right? So, and obviously now I know there's a temporary hold right now going on with asylum cases. So it's very tough to get asylum. How he got into this country with the program with respect to Afghan refugees that were helping us fight the Taliban out in Afghanistan, like that is its own thing, and that was years ago. But in terms of him being approved asylum earlier this year, there are other documents that have forensics that need to be submitted to the judge, and all of that stuff is vetted, for lack of a term, during the case, during the trial. So to say that this person wasn't vetted and the Biden administration, yeah, we could blame the program for having him be on U.S. soil and whether or not that program was merited because of what those folks did to help us fight the Taliban in Afghanistan. But now, in terms of him being allowed to stay here, that happened earlier this year. So I really think the finger pointing doesn't help anything. I think the system needs to be fixed overall and change, and we need to figure out how to not get people to radicalize and commit acts of violence like this.
And Simon, your thoughts on asylum and immigration related to this incident, and then we'll broaden it up to talk a little bit more broadly, as Mike's pointing to, just the general problem of radicalization.
Well, on asylum writ large, I think one point that Noem made is worth underlining. Under the Biden administration, there was a policy of catching and releasing people at the border, and they paroled in about 1.5 million people. And both of those programs rest on the premise that all of these people coming in are going to at some point claim asylum. I could go into why that was illegal, and it definitely was counter to U.S. National interests, but that's the fact. So you've got this backlog of whatever, 1.5 million people, plus all those that were caught and released that are presumably going to claim asylum at some point. Now, before we release them, we put the tail wagged the dog. We let them in first, and then we put them through the asylum process where we supposedly vet them. And always remember, if you ping against a database that has no information in it, you're not really doing a lot of vetting. So we use that word very loosely. If you're vetting someone who comes from Germany, you're going to be able to have, or Japan, pretty accurate data shared by those countries that are members of the visa waiver program. You're going to have at least some background. But if you do it against somebody coming from Afghanistan, unless they are registered with the U.S. government in some way because they worked for us or we encountered them in the field, you're going to get practically nothing, and the Taliban is not going to share whatever they have. So it is a black box that we're sort of poking into, hoping that it's going to reveal someone's entire history. But the truth is, it won't and it can't. And so we've got these people in now who have to go through the system. And at the end of the process, if they're denied asylum, they have to be sent home again. And that's something we haven't been doing for many years.
You bring up some interesting points. Of course, many of these people came in during the Biden administration. As Mike points out, this person, though, proceeded to gain his access granted in April during Trump's administration. I want to pan out a little bit, though, talk about what Pam Bondi was referring as something that's going to come up a lot more with the administration on radicalization. With the violence that we've seen just this year since Trump's come in office, these acts of violence from what you might call radicalized individuals were both people who came from overseas as well as U.S. nationals, if you look at the Charlie Kirk incident. So, Mike, what can be done? What should we be talking about as it relates to countering what clearly is a problem of radicalization?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's many forms just in that sentence that you said there, right? The Charlie Kirk incident obviously could be political ideology, which is why I've stressed not only on this program and others, like, let's tone it down. Let's use our words properly here. Things that you learn, like in first grade, second grade, Gary, But then there's the other part of it, right? Which is outside seekers that come here that do want to commit harm, like kind of what Simon said, right? You got some of these folks that do come from some of these countries that it is a black box. And let's be honest, it's a black box for a big reason. We've been involved in conflicts there, and then we've left there. They've asked us for help, and then they didn't like the way we provided the help. And then all of a sudden now you have folks that are coming from these countries that, to Simon's point, the process is broken because we were letting them here, even though they did favors for us and worked inside with the U.S. government, but we didn't actually properly vet them, to use that word loosely again. So there's two types of radicalization. I think the biggest thing for me, Carrie, and it's something, again, that's why my show's called Can We Please Talk, not some other type of incendiary language. I think the rhetoric needs to tone down a little bit. I think also we need to choose our words carefully, and also we need to get the process to be a little bit more rigorous in terms of what it is that we're doing with immigration overall, from soup to nuts, right? In terms of the hardworking citizens that do want to be here that we're sending back right now, versus what the president has said before, which is the criminals, the ones that do want to do harm to our communities, whether it be through drugs or whether it be through like this action of this person right here, killing two National Guard troops. We need to figure out the process to vet these individuals properly across the board, ones coming in, but then also ones that are homegrown here, Carrie. We need to be better with our language across the board, across the political spectrum.
Thank you, Mike. And we are running low on time, but Simon, I do want you to also weigh in on this concept of radicalization and the broken process of asylum seeking.
Radicalization is very, very difficult to fight. I think with domestic terrorists, it comes down to families, it comes down to education, it comes down to ideology. That's pushing on a string. We have to do our best, but you can never completely stamp out far left or even far right ideology. When it comes to foreigners, we have a choice. We can limit at least the risk. We can do much better social media and other kinds of vetting. And we can make the prize of U.S. citizenship a little harder to attain. We're not deporting anybody who's a U.S. citizen. I agree with most of what Mike says, but that was one little slip. We're only deporting people who, under our laws, are not eligible to be here. And so we have to make sure that that prize of U.S. citizenship is always very, very hard to get. And even to be able to stay here as an asylee or refugee or green card holder should be the kind of pinnacle of our immigration system. And we do not want to give that away, which I think we have been for too long.
Well, this tragic incident last Wednesday has certainly brought this directly into focus. Appreciate your comments, Mike Leon, Simon Hankinson. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
The Department of Homeland Security has confirmed that another Afghan national paroled into the U.S. under former President Biden was arrested for allegedly threatening to blow up a building in Texas. Homeland Security official Tricia McLaughlin said Texas law enforcement arrested the male Afghan national a day before the attack on the National Guard in D.C. McLaughlin said he posted a video of himself on TikTok indicating he was building a bomb with an intended target of the Fort Worth area. She added that ICE has lodged a detainer. The Trump administration has moved to tighten immigration policy since the National Guard shooting. President Trump last week directed the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, to re-examine green card holders from 19 countries of concern, including Afghanistan and Somalia. The USCIS director confirmed the agency paused asylum decisions until, quote, we can ensure that every alien is vetted and screened to the maximum degree possible. And up ahead, still no arrests after 3 children and an adult were gunned down at a child's birthday party in California over the weekend. Police are urging the public to come forward with tips, videos, and witness accounts.
And the weather isn't letting up for the Northeast and the Midwest. Another winter storm heads into the region after a snowy Thanksgiving.
Meanwhile, a man accused of killing United Healthcare's CEO is back in court today. His attorneys want key evidence tossed out.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. No respite for some of the areas still recovering from a disruptive post-Thanksgiving storm.
That's right, a new winter storm is racing out of the plains toward the Northeast.
Forecasters warn the system will spread snow, ice, and heavy rain from the central plains into the Midwest and interior Northeast today through tomorrow.
The National Weather Service says the storm will bring hazardous snow and ice to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast as the first big winter storm of the season moves in.
Here in New York, Lewis County is under a winter weather advisory with up to 8 inches of snow expected. Travelers have been urged to use caution as snow-covered roads and restricted visibility are very likely.
And after the snow and ice, a surge of Arctic air will settle in, dropping temperatures to their lowest levels of the season in parts of the central and eastern U.S.
Winter weather continues to hinder travelers coming back from their Thanksgiving destinations. Forecasters say a new storm system is taking shape today in the Mid-South, near where Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas meet. They predict snow in much of the northeastern U.S. this week and heavy rain south of there. This system follows a previous one that snarled travel over the weekend.
Winter weather can always be impactful, but this is definitely one for the books for sure.
Indiana police say 45 vehicles were in this pileup Saturday with no major injuries. Delta says no one was hurt when this plane slid off an Iowa runway yesterday. FlightAware reports roughly 12,000 delays and 1,000 U.S. cancellations yesterday. It says Chicago's O'Hare Airport was the hardest hit.
We were pushed back because it was delayed for a couple of hours. Then we were able to get another flight. That one was delayed like another 30 minutes to an hour.
FlightAware says the busiest airport in the world racked up delays too.
The concern is that the flight would be canceled. If it's delayed, we've got some family here who's on standby to come back and pick us up. So we'll see how it goes.
That's even though it's in Atlanta, which did not get snow.
The aviation system is really interconnected and it can have a domino effect. So you can be outrightly impacted even without being in that area that's seeing weather.
A lot going on there. Everybody stay safe if you're out or traveling at all. Still no one in custody after 3 children and an adult were killed Saturday at a child's birthday party.
Authorities in California are appealing to the public for tips, cell phone video, or witness accounts.
We believe that families came together to celebrate their children's birthday party and that a suspect or possible suspects targeted this event.
It was not something where the rest of the public has to fear. This wasn't just some terrorist type attack where they walked in and just wanted to kill people. So we're not gonna say whether it's gang related or not until we have all the facts in front of us. We do not have anyone in custody at this time.
Someone opened fire at a banquet hall in Stockton where 100 people or more had gathered on Saturday. Officials say the deceased were ages 8, 9, 14, and 21. 11 people were also wounded, with at least one in critical condition.
Stockton Mayor Christina Fugazi says the shooting was gang-related, calling it, quote, domestic terrorism. Fugazi says President Trump's advisors called her early yesterday to offer assistance.
Meanwhile, dozens of anti-ICE protesters clashed with police near a garage in Lower Manhattan on Saturday.
The scene quickly became chaotic, with multiple people getting arrested.
ICE out of New York! ICE out of New York! ICE out of New York! ICE out of New York!
The protest erupted over possible ICE activity in Chinatown. Police responded to a call about a disorderly group in the area around noon.
The NYPD said in a statement that officers, quote, observed multiple people blocking the street and were told multiple times to disperse, but they did not comply.
Federal agents were also present at the scene, though it wasn't clear whether they were with ICE. Video captured showed protesters yelling obscenities and throwing objects, including metal barricades at law enforcement officers. There are also reports of protesters and members of the press being pepper sprayed.
Saturday's clash follows recent ICE raids on street vendors in Chinatown. A number of illegal immigrants have been taken into custody during those operations.
Luigi Mangione is due in state court today. He's accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson about a year ago. His attorneys are seeking to have evidence thrown out of court. Those items include a 9mm handgun that prosecutors say matches the one used in the killing and a notebook. Prosecutors say he described his intent in it to, quote, whack a health insurance executive. His lawyers argue investigators illegally seized them from the 27-year-old's backpack without a warrant. Prosecutors disagree and have agreed to a hearing on the matter. Mangione also faces a separate federal death penalty case.
And lawmakers are returning to Washington, D.C. this week. The House is teeing up a vote meant to discourage U.S. schools from taking grants from the Chinese Communist Party. In many cases, these grants are used to ingrain the Communist Party's ideology into the minds of the young students. NTD's Melina Weisskopf brings us more.
House lawmakers are working to prevent young students from being influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. The Education Committee reported earlier this year that Confucius classrooms have infiltrated more than 500 American K-12 schools.
The CCP Confucius classrooms pose a national security risk, a geopolitical security risk, and an academic security risk. To combat these threats,
the chairman described Confucius classrooms as CCP propaganda outposts. Many lawmakers have raised concerns that these types of classrooms are disguised as cultural exchange, but that the Chinese Communist Party has other goals.
The CCP doesn't do these things with a charitable intent. The entire purpose of the programs is they expect something in return, control over curriculum, and thereby influence over the young minds that are subject to it.
Congressman Kiley's bill called Protect Our Kids would allow the government to withhold tax dollars from elementary through high schools that have financial support from China. It will be voted on this week.
It is unacceptable that American school districts have entered into financial agreements with entities tied to the CCP, an adversary of the United States, a regime with one of the worst human rights records in modern history.
Lawmakers recently passed legislation to tackle the issue at the college level. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The death toll from Hong Kong's deadliest fire in decades has climbed to at least 151. Investigators continue to probe into how the blaze spread so rapidly. The latest information from authorities points to substandard renovation materials. More than 40 people are still missing as police continue to sweep the 7 towers of Wong Fu Court. Mourners lined up yesterday for nearly a mile to lay white flowers and notes of grief outside the burned-out complex. The fire has sparked tension after police briefly detained a student who circulated flyers demanding an independent investigation and greater oversight. Hong Kong's South China Morning Post says 2 others have also since been arrested on suspicion of seditious intent. The Chinese regime has increasingly suppressed Hong Kong's freedoms in recent years. The Chinese Communist Party's National Security Office warned individuals over reigniting what they call political chaos, referring to large-scale pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong in 2019. Such protests have been a distant memory since Beijing imposed a national security law on Hong Kong in 2020. Still to come, what's hot and what's not this holiday shopping season.
Why consumers are looking to spend more and buy less.
And could water rival wine in taste and appeal? A food anthropologist explains why he traded his passion for wine for the surprisingly complex world of H2O.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. President Trump says the deadly shooting of 2 National Guard members is prompting his administration to tighten immigration rules, including a possible long-term pause on asylum from certain countries. He also suggested some naturalized citizens could have their status reviewed. Trump says he plans to honor the 2 guardsmen and has invited their families to the White House. Tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela are increasing. President Trump says he spoke to President Nicolas Maduro over the phone. The administration has closed Venezuelan airspace. The FAA is warning of heightened military activity. Plus, lawmakers are demanding answers over reports of follow-up U.S. strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats. And the Kremlin said today that an American delegation led by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff would be in Moscow tomorrow to meet with Putin to discuss the changes made to the U.S. proposed peace plan. That's following a critical round of diplomacy that happened over the weekend. Ukrainian officials met with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Rubio said the U.S. and Ukraine made good progress during the meeting yesterday, but says that Moscow still has to agree to the plans. And a new winter storm is moving from the plains toward the northeast, bringing snow and heavy rain to areas still recovering from last week's blast of snow. Lewis County, New York could see up to 8 inches of snow with slick roads and low visibility, creating very hazardous travel conditions. Following the storm, Arctic air will plunge temperatures to this season's lowest levels across central and eastern U.S. Those are this morning's top headlines. With that, Steph, over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. Holiday shopping is officially underway, and for many communities, those gift purchases are a lifeline for local jobs and downtown businesses. Retail experts say this year's season is starting earlier and lasting longer, with shoppers looking for gifts that feel meaningful, not just discounted. Director of the Center for Retailing Innovation at Texas A&M University, Thomas McMillan, says experience gifts are surging, from concert tickets to weekend getaways, as families look to share memories instead of stacking up on stocking stuffers. He says when people do buy physical presents, they're leaning toward quality over quantity, tech, premium cookware, leather goods, and other durable items. Self-care continues to boom too, with wellness tech, massagers, and beauty devices among the categories expected to stand out this year. And analysts say high-income shoppers will drive much of the season's momentum. Economists say every purchase helps support workers and businesses. Meanwhile, the White House says strong Thanksgiving and Black Friday spending signals the U.S. economy is on track for stronger growth in 2026.
Yeah, the White House told CBS Sunday there was a 10% jump in online sales on Black Friday. Economic advisor Kevin Hassett pointed to rising incomes and pent-up demand after the government shutdown.
Next, could water ever rival wine in taste and romantic appeal? Vital Signs host Brendan Fallon interviewed a food anthropologist who found himself trading his passion for wine for the surprisingly complex varieties of water.
Discovery that led him to healthier and still satisfying lifestyle of fine drinking.
Well, it's wet, and I'm pleased it doesn't smell like the Hudson River. But what more could there possibly be to it, right? Could water ever have enough character, complexity, and backstory for you to swap it for your favorite Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot Noir? It's hard to imagine, but today's guest has done just that. Once a wine connoisseur with 500 bottles of wine in his cellar, Michael Marsha is the last person you'd expect to trade wine for water.
I had a huge wine collection. I'm a food anthropologist by training, which means Food and wine was always very important to me. Wine was really something to enjoy, to share, to discover. All these Epicurean things around the wine was what I was interested in. And now that was removed. And I looked at the other bottle I never looked at before, which was a water bottle on the table.
Michael joins us to share how he became a water sommelier, advising restaurants on fine waters as opposed to fine wine. He also reveals how not just his health, but his appreciation of food and quality time with family and friends have escalated through water. Welcome to Vital Signs, where we look at how to get healthier from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendan Fallon. Michael Masha is the author of Fine Waters, described as an encyclopedia of water by the London Times. His PhD from the University of Vienna is in anthropology and communication science. Michael, welcome to Vital Signs.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to have you on because this is a subject that I think we're both passionate about. I really have a deep appreciation for water. And I actually brought a sample from New Jersey I've got here today just to get your visual impression of that. I tampered with that a little bit, admittedly. But it's probably not too far from the fact of it. I see some very colorful, very attractive bottles of water behind you. What kind of water is that?
Thanks for your interest and thanks for having me on your show and showing interest for water. The waters you see behind me are waters from a natural source. Those waters have terroir. They come from a particular special place. Those waters, hold experiences, and those waters can give wellness. And unfortunately, many consumers are confused. They just look at the bottle and don't realize they're actually two very different products sold in a bottle. One is a natural waters, the waters you see behind me, and the other one is processed water that comes from a factory. So two different products that we call bottled water. You have me here today to talk about the waters that come from a natural source.
Are there any particular waters that you have there that you'd recommend sitting there behind you?
I recommend every one of them. It's just a problem that you will not find it because they come sometimes from very remote places and are not globally distributed. But many wines and other things are sometimes very local, unfortunately. But you have to keep in mind, we think water always comes from a spring, but there are so many more sources than springs. Water can come from an artesian source, which is a source that's under pressure and the water emerges by its own pressure. Some of the waters come from icebergs, from glacier. Some waters come from rain. So many different sources that create different experiences with water.
And that sounds a lot more exotic and a lot more interesting and probably a lot more healthy than what's on offer in many of the places that we go to in the cities that we live in, like to restaurants, to diners, even in the schools that our children are attending. There just isn't really water on offer, or the water that is on offer is tap water. In my experience, that isn't always the best tasting or the healthiest. I want to get into that later, I want to find out what the alternative option is for that. But first off, you were a wine connoisseur, and somehow you've swapped in water for wine. And can you just give a snapshot of how that's come about?
Well, I didn't do it. I was just like the catalyst. So I had a huge wine collection. I'm a food anthropologist by training, which means food and wine was always very important to me. And about a little bit more than 20 years ago, I had to stop drinking wine. This was kind of really a cataclysmic event because the wine was not there for getting drunk. If you really wanted to have that, there's always a bottle of vodka in the freezer and that gets you quickly there without the calories. But wine was really something to enjoy, to share, to discover. All these Epicurean things around the wine was what I was interested in. And now that was removed. And I looked at the other bottle I never looked at before, which was a water bottle on the table. And I thought maybe I can apply all my interest in the Epicurean wine world onto water. And this was 20 years ago. And for the next 10, 12 years, no journalist wanted to talk to me because it sounded like a crazy idea. But we have changed the world and the perception of water a lot. And right now you're talking to me. Many things around the world point towards the direction that water is no longer water and is accepted on the table at the same level as wine.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/Vital Signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
And coming up, Have you wanted to promote your business or your charity on social media, but you're not quite sure of the most effective way to get your message out there?
We're going to have a social media influencer and Instagram content creator, Farron Wright. She's here in the studio to give you tips and tricks on cutting through the noise. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. As online communities began to emerge nearly 20 years ago, web designer Jakob Nielsen observed a phenomenon called participation inequality, summarized as 1-9-90. That means 1% of users create most of the content, 9% casually participate, and 90% observe.
That's right. And in today's society with polarization, cancel culture, it may make some people even more hesitant to be active on social media. But joining us to discuss how to step out into the world of social media and grow confidence in your voice is Farron Wright. She's a social media influencer, Instagram content creator at Farron Wright. Farron, thank you so much for joining us here in studio. It's great that you're in from Dallas here to enjoy New York. Yeah. Tell us a little bit, before we get into social media, just your background. How did you get sort of started in all this?
Yes, I think one of the funnest things that you never expect to do what you do. And then when it happens, you're like, wow, I didn't expect that. So I never thought that this would be a job that I would have. But I actually got started because I joined a skincare company. And so I was showing people how to use their products and how to make your skin glow and all these things. And I would have never guessed that that would have made me comfortable in front of a camera years later to start doing social media.
Wonderful. Well, it's really taken off. And I'd love to hear more about your take on social media, why it's so useful, and how people can get started.
Yeah, so I really believe that we all have such a voice and we can all bring value to somebody and we can all help people. And so if you bring joy to people, you can bring joy to people online. If you make people laugh, you can make people laugh online. And media is such a space now. We're just in a world of media. Everybody consumes media so much. And so I like to let people look at it like a digital blueprint where you are leaving a mark in the world and you are helping people. So if you are inspiring people or if you have something that you can encourage somebody with, that is going to live forever.
Now let's get a little bit more down to the tactics of actually doing it. So, who do you think could benefit and why is social media a more accessible way for them to get their message out there?
Yeah, so social media is one of the largest platforms. I mean, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, there's millions of views a day. And so if you have a business or you have a message or you have a story, it's a great way to use it to really help people and really get the message out there or really show people what you do in your business. Because if you're so passionate about your business, you want people to see like what you're doing and then be able to bring in connections that you've never had before. I get to talk to women all the way in Ireland that I would have never been able to do in normal life because our paths wouldn't have crossed. But because of social media, you're able to cross paths with people, and it just is so special what you are able to do.
It's a wonderful picture you're painting of connection, community, and these things that, people strive to achieve in their lives, but may not realize what opportunities lie beyond the current situation they're in. And the impact, as you mentioned, if somebody's got a story, if somebody's got a mission that they want to share and spread. So what are some practical tips that people can use to get started?
Okay, I have 3 tips for everybody watching. It is so simple. So one message you can turn into 3 different pieces of content. Whatever you want to showcase, whatever your message is, you can turn it into 3 different ways. So one is talking to camera. You just set up your phone. Nowadays, I have a little grippy on the back of my phone. You can literally stick it anywhere and you talk to the camera. So whatever you want to say, you say it to your audience, like you're talking directly to them. And then another one is really fun, like behind the scenes. So say you're doing a video and you're able to really capture things, and then telling a story with text on the screen is another fabulous way to do the same piece of content in a different way. And then my third is really fun for all of the writers and readers. People are really good at telling a story through writing. And so you can post a picture and have a whole caption because some people, your audience is captivated by what you write. So there's so many different ways, whatever works best for you. All you have to do is show up consistently.
Those are great tips for creating content. Maybe you could give us some of the tips that you've learned in terms of how you use social media to tag or otherwise get that content to people? Like you said, you had something in common with somebody in Ireland, something that connected the two of you despite boundaries. So how do you actually get that piece of content to the people that might be interested in it?
Well, I think you're creating a community. You're creating people who are really inspired by what you say, or they're drawn to you. They want to know more. So you're adding value. So the more value you can add, the more of the community that will be drawn to you and what you share, and they want to hear from you. One of my favorite accounts, he's like a neuroscientist, and I love learning about the brain. And so those are like, you would have never thought that I would be drawn into his community, but because of the information he puts out online, I watch his videos all the time. So for anybody, you can add value no matter what you do, and you will grow your community, and it can be from all over the world.
And you can have, my sense is, so much impact as you're experiencing as well. But what kind of platforms do you think suit different purposes? Are there recommendations you've got for where people should start?
Yeah, okay, so whichever platform is performing best for you, keep going on that one, because I am in a world full of content creators, and we have, phone calls where we talk about all the time how this is so wild that this works on this platform, but it doesn't work on this platform. So find one that is really liking what you're putting out, and then that makes it easier to grow instead of being scattered on multiple different platforms and then not being able to grow your community. I know that can be really frustrating. So pick one that works best for you.
And I want to get your take. Obviously, there's all of the positivity that comes out of social media, especially when it comes to small businesses or charities. But as we start to round up, would love to get your thoughts on how you can make social media work for you, but you not become a slave to social media, and you could mitigate some of the dangers that we all hear about it.
Yeah, when I first got started on social media, I didn't really have the viewpoint that all of a sudden the whole world has access to your life. And so very early on, I had people that would cover me if I would get really cruel comments online. I would be able to just share, hey, this is going on and this was actually really hurtful. And I would have people that would encourage me and say, your voice matters. And so that's what I would tell people, your voice matters. So even if you are getting cruel comments, that has nothing to do with you and what you're putting out, but you are doing the right thing, you're encouraging other people. And so just keep going would be my advice to people, because your content will get to the right people.
I love that. So inspiring, so much opportunity, especially for those who maybe they're taking on a bigger industry or they're getting started. Yeah. You have the opportunity to get your message out there. Farron Wright, so great to have you in the studio. And you can find Farron at Farron Wright on Instagram. Check her out. She's got great content. And as we start to wind up, if you have any feedback on the show or you have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, remember you can watch us live at ntd.com/live or catch us on our app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Dunst. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Our next segment looks at an inspiring new conversation at the intersection of science, emotion, and faith. A conversation centered on food, health, and human potential.
We welcome Carolyn Ecoff, author of The Secret of Food and some beautiful nutritional creations. Welcome, Carolyn. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So good to have you here. And your message is really inspiring, bringing in faith as well as something so central to human life, food. Tell us about your vision of what you're getting at here.
Yeah, so I really like what you said about the intersection, because food can be so simple and so impactful at the same time. Right? So food is one of the most powerful tools for transformation, to nurture our bodies, our emotions, and to nurture us spiritually too.
And how did your personal journey and your background shape your view of food, health, as well as potential?
So I was very obese when I was young. So when I was around 17, I got diagnosed with diabetes type 2. And I reached a point where my body got really, really sick. And I was 300 pounds heavier. Can you imagine this?
I can't even believe it.
Can you imagine this? So I lived a totally different life. So when I changed everything around my health and the food, got my mission back. I had freedom suddenly, right? And from that freedom, I gained my mission to help all these kids and people to have a long-lasting change without the restriction, what we know, without restriction and diet and counting calories. It's about freedom. It's about the joy and the taste in the food, And so ultimately also really transforming your body in a beautiful way.
I see that joy in you. It's contagious. Yeah. Tell me more about this connection between the way people think of food and approach food and what they eat and the joy that it can bring out.
Yeah. So most people see food as more a survival tool. They count calories and chase different diets and plans. But food can really nurture our potential. It can rebuild communities. It can even spread hope across nations. And this is very, very, very powerful. We all come together around the table and share food. And this is one of the most beautiful things when love and joy is shared around together in community through food.
I mean, I'm very inspired. I'm also inspired that you guys match so wonderfully for the holiday season and the beautiful colors and spread here. I'd love to get, you've shared your background, which is hard to believe what you've been through. When I look at you now, I can't even imagine that. But I'd love to get some of the inspiration that you've received from people who have taken your message and how it's impacted their lives.
I'm so grateful because food was always my enemy. This was like my biggest thing I struggled with, and now this is my biggest message, from pain to purpose, basically. And people, when they truly break free from this whole struggle, they have a totally different life. They show up as different parents, as people in business, You have a sharp mind, a clear focus, you have steady energy, and you have emotional stability inside of you, right? To make purpose-driven decisions for yourself, for your family, for the business. And this is massive,
Yeah, I want to plug into that more because you've written a book, The Secret of Food. You've got these beautiful products that come forth from your experiences and your mission. And I know that you've said that these products kind of seek to fulfill a kind of God-driven purpose for food.
Yeah.
And what you have to say about that.
Yeah. So I believe all the products we are making, they are built around God's design for nourishment, to uplift the body, to align the mind, and to strengthen the purpose inside, right? Because when we use, for example, the love ball, we can feed ourselves identity, dignity. We can feed ourselves purpose. And food is one of the most powerful tools, like spiritual tools, to get in alignment of who we truly are, to remember who we truly are. And this is so powerful when we're really feeding ourselves this identity. And, you feel this light that shines and radiates,
I love that. I love the packaging of the love ball here. And it's so true that, just a little bit of nutrients, that food can be medicine. And so when you take it and you're really putting something good in your body, you start to feel better. So I'd love to just get a sense of what your plan is over the next 5 to 10 years in trying to bring this message out. Because clearly you can't put food in every single person in the globe's, tummies all at the same time. Yeah. So what is your mission essentially, and the message you want to bring to people?
Mm-hmm. So, for example, the love ball is an emotional moment. It's a moment of emotional grounding, right? A food experience for all your senses to reduce the stress eating, to calm the body, and to deliver a sense of hope and peace and comfort within your own self. So I want, over the next decade, every child to be fed, not just to survive, but to thrive, and help families really break these cycles of poverty and emotional eating, because we know 80% of why people eating is because of emotion, right? Of stress and trauma and overload, and to really break free. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of these love balls, what is it in them that would help, that helps deliver that moment?
Mm-hmm. So they are very clean products. So the food in and of itself is very delicious, and it invites people to really get out of the restriction mindset into the abundance. Look at all the abundance that's in the food. Look at all the joy, and you take it in, So we have dates for natural sweetness. It uplifts, you know, your whole spirit. You don't want to have a crash, you know, in the afternoon. You want to be uplifted. And then we have like real cacao. So it's not milk powder and sugar. So it's like the real cacao fruit. And you have these nibs in there. Have you tried them before?
Should I be picking?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Oh, really? Here we go.
So they give this a little bit of a crunch.
It really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Delicious. Wow.
This is real cacao, so it's high in antioxidants. It has like real good features for the body, right? So the product is nice. And then the chocolate ball will be rolled in these finest raspberry powder.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's have a look. So
yes.
You've got some powder there to, and there's the ingredients. So this is whole dried raspberries.
Exactly.
And that's what goes on the outside of the ball?
Yes. So usually we have these balls, right? So the chocolate balls.
I'm gonna just pop one in my mouth if I may.
There you go.
Oh my God.
They're that delicious.
That was fantastic. Wow.
You like it?
Yeah,
You're
surprising.
like, I can't wait.
Okay.
Good. Do you also want to try one?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
let's do
Okay,
chocolate
great.
cheers. This is what we usually do with people all across the globe, you know?
Yeah.
We're putting it together. Cheers to life.
Cheers.
Wow, that is so good. So unexpected too.
Yes? How?
Yeah, like the dates, you can tell that it's not like what you get when you go to the drugstore or something. I mean, this is like real food, but it's really sweet. It's a treat.
The tangy on the outside from the raspberry and the contrast with the sweet is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these delicious treats, and your message is so inspiring. Carolyn Witkoff, thank you so much for joining us today. And we do have to wrap up now, but if you have any feedback for the show, or maybe there's something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We would love to hear from you.
And for round-the-clock original news covers, watch us live at ntd.com/live, or just download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Gary Dunst. We'll see you soon. I'm going back to eating this yummy treat. Right?